Brawler class has been released on beta for their first beta test, and in this video I'm going to go over Redline Brawler just to get a basic understanding of how Redline Brawler works. Now before going into the traits, we're just going to look at the skills. It's important to realize that some of the Brawler mechanics are based on three different types of attacks. You have balanced attacks, you have heavy attacks, and quick attacks. The basic idea behind the Brawler is to build metal, which is kind of like Hunter Focus or Champion Fervor. You can see this bar here. You build metal and you use your metal bending skills. As of right now, we have three metal building skills, which is called your setup skills. Low Strike, which adds 1 to metal. Dexterous Hook, which also adds 1 to metal. And you have Sinister Cross, which adds 1 to metal. You may notice these three have some special effects. And their effects is based on which setup attack you use last before using a metal spending skill. If you use Low Strike as your last setup skill before using an attack, you have a chance to put an incoming damage debuff on the target, which is called Vulnerable Effect or something like that. Dexterous Hook pretty much makes the next spender deal more damage. If you're not trying to proc your buff or tier up an innate strength buff, you want to use Dexterous Hook as your last spender for the extra damage. And like I said, Sinister Cross is used to tier up your innate strength buffs, which we will look at later. You also have Quick Feint, which gives a melee damage buff as well as adds metal. You have Flex, which also gives a damage buff and also regenerates metal over time. You have Raw Fury, which basically gives 10 seconds where your builders or setup skills deal more damage. And you have Follow Me, really strong minus 20% attack duration bonus, fellowship within 5 meters. You can see the duration is 30 seconds, cooldown is 1 minute. Have a 50% uptime on this. Even though you're playing Redline, you still have a couple of cooldowns. One for All increases the mitigations of yourself and your allies up to 10%, and it lasts for 30 seconds. Depending on how many allies you have, the buff will be stronger. You have Weather Blows, which is kind of like a quick heal / incoming damage buff as well. You have Hurl Object, basic throw range skill. You have your basic Slip Free, which is breakout skill, and you have your removal of effects skill, Shrug It Off. That brings us back to the three different types of attacks. You have the balanced attacks, 3 of them. I put them at the top. You have Overhand Smash. All the spenders right now cost 3 metal, but that might change in the future. Overhand Smash. You have Shattering Fist, which debuffs armor value of your target. And you have Pummel. This sort of works like Smoldering Wrath, that it's a channeled attack, but you're kind of like throwing a lot of punches. But it's pretty much a Smoldering Wrath effect. You have your heavy attacks, which is Strike Towards the Sky and Mighty Upheaval. And you have your quick attacks, Backhand Clout, AoE attack, a Vicious Knee, debuffs target run speed. You have Helm Crusher, deals a 3-second stun. You have Helm's Hammer, which is your corruption removal skill, and you have your Interrupt, which is Fulgurant Strike. Now that we've looked at all the basic skills, we can go look at the traits. The Maelstrom is the DPS line for the Brawler, Redline. You earn a few skills, you get some might, and you get melee damage. I'm not going to touch blue line in this video because I have a separate video where I look at blue line, but I'm going to go through all the red line, all the set bonuses, and some skills in yellow that might be useful for red line. Pretty much as a brawler, you have red line, you have a blue line, and the yellow line is just where you can get some extra nice stuff if you want it. But looking at the red line, you have first strike, you earn a skill right away. First strike is a balanced attack. That's another balanced attack you can use. Setup attack damage, your setup skills, the low strike, Dexter's Hook, and Sinister Cross deals more damage. Dexter's Hook training, like I said, if you use Dexter's Hook as your last builder before hitting an attack, deal more damage. This just makes the bonus damage stronger. Might increase, have crit chance, all pretty nice. Revel in Victory Pulse. This means that every time you defeat an enemy, you regenerate metal. Killing enemies help you regenerate metal. Joy of Battle is a skill that you earn. Pretty much this skill makes you take less damage, and each time you get hit, you get a building damage buff on yourself. Next up we have reduce cooldown on your interrupt skill, Cauldron Strike. We have Latent Light, which means all metal spending attacks, which are all of these, the balanced, heavy, and quick attacks, have a chance to deal light damage. And on the next line you can see that there's a higher chance to trigger that light damage, and there's more of a light damage increase. It looks like light damage is going to be a big thing for Brawler when it's fully balanced and tuned. We have Aggressive Posture. This is a toggle skill. Pretty much a skill that every brawler is going to use. You sacrifice some mitigation, but you gain 15% melee damage. We have Devastate, damage increase by 25%. Overhand Smash reduces incoming healing of your enemy. If you trade this, your Overhand Smash skill will reduce incoming healing. And the capstones, we have Fist of the Valor. Seems to be the highest dealing damage skill you have as a brawler, and it appears to be a heavy attack. So this skill deals more damage with max metal as well, as does every skill because of your passive. Brawler has a passive skill called Battle Flow. Each point of metal grants 10% skill damage. But that applies only to metal spending skills, not generating. So all these skills that cost metal will get a damage buff. The other capstone is Battle Fury. This pretty much buffs your passive skill for 20 seconds to deal an additional 5% per pip. Another cooldown you can use. Looking at the set bonuses from Redline, you have your... Now this takes me back to the 3 different skill types. You have quick, heavy, and balanced attacks. A Brawler in blue line and red line have 3 different innate strengths that are buffs that can tier up. They're refreshed by using these attacks, different types of attacks. So the innate strength raw power on tier 4 gives plus 30% damage, and this buff is maintained by using quick attacks. All of the attacks that are called quick attacks are used to build up and maintain the raw power innate strength. One thing to note is that if your Sinister Cross is your last setup attack, then it'll tier up a buff that's already on the target by 2 instead of 1. The one idea to get this buff up quickly is to use a quick attack, then set up attack Sinister Cross, another quick attack will take it to tier 3, and then another quick attack tier 4. You want to build this buff really quickly. Then you need to keep using quick attacks to refresh this buff. Next set bonus is Flurry of Blows. This is pretty much a pummel buff. Pummel, which is a skill that works like Smoldering Wrath. This can tier up 3 times and it'll stay with you for all of the fight as long as you're in combat. Pretty much it means your second pummel will deal more damage than your third, and every pummel after that will keep dealing max damage. Your second innate strength is being maintained by using balanced attacks. This gives a finesse bonus, but the damage bonus is far greater. I don't know if this is worth keeping up, but in any case you gain finesse from this innate strength. Like a stinging nettle, every time a brawler parries or evades an attack, you deal damage to the attacker. The third innate strength gives you a critical rating. This is being maintained by using heavy attacks, more devastate damage and light damage, and finally enhanced battle flow. Your passive skill is increased from 10 to 15%. And that's pretty much all of Redline. I just want to look into Yellowline real quick, see if there's anything useful for DPS. You have Battle-Wise, which makes your 3 setup skills have more of a chance to apply a bonus medal. Max AoE targets if there's a lot of ads. This skill is probably really good for Red Brawler. Gives you more of a chance to apply your incoming damage debuff on your target. You have some evade and some mitigations, which are most useful for tanks. Lasting weakness makes your incoming damage debuff last longer, which is probably pretty good for DPS. Strike is 1 is a really powerful buff. Just like Follow Me, same effect. 1 minute cooldown, 30-second uptime. If you're by yourself, it's a 25% damage buff on yourself. You stand next to your fellowship, they all gain 10% as well as yourself. This increases the damage buff of the skill, really strong for DPS. These 3 skills are used to share your innate strength, and probably only the raw power one is good to share. I'm not sure if it applies to the tanking ones as well, the blue line ones, but this one would probably be good to share with your allies, your damage buff. It doesn't share all of it, it says shares a portion. Depending how much it shares, then it might be pretty good. Then you have a bonus benefit from food, and at the bottom you have a skill that for 20 seconds reduces the pip by every metal skill by 1, and you have a trait that makes skills come back faster off cooldown when you use your setup attacks at the bottom. That concludes my Redline Brawler basic guide, I guess you can call it. It's still early, there might be more changes coming in the future, of course I'm gonna cover that. I also did a Blue Line video where I covered Blue Line just like I did Redline in this one. Hopefully this helped you get a better idea of Redline Brawler. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, join my Discord, and I'll see you in the next one.